Humanitarian Fund, also known as the GHF, was supposed to be a lifeline for the dying people of Gaza. It was seen as a beacon of hope for a starved, bleeding people trapped in the largest open-air prison in the world. However, what started out as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, an initiative publicly backed by Israel and the United States, has transformed into a deadly trap, marking a new phase in the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. Since the GHF began operations in Gaza in early May 2025, after Israel got heavily criticized from all over the world for using starvation as a weapon on Gazans, the suffering of the people hasn't eased, it has only intensified. Every day, desperate Gazans line up for the most basic of needs: flour, water, and baby formula. Instead, they receive gunfire, execution, bloodshed, and loss of limbs. According to the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, as of July 7, 2025, over 615 Palestinian civilians have been killed at or near GHF distribution sites. The number has now risen to more than 800 deaths. By July 1st, these so-called aid zones reported over 583 deaths and 4,186 injuries. Sadly, the cause of their deaths is that the hands that give aid to the Palestinians suddenly take out weapons and open fire on civilians to humiliate them and show who is in control. These are not unfortunate accidents. These are not isolated incidents. These are deliberate acts of terror, perpetrated at the hands of the Israeli occupation forces and aided by a Western-backed operation dressed in humanitarian disguise. Doctors Without Borders have stated that this is not aid, this is slaughter masquerading as mercy. Be it witnesses or journalists or the survivors from the aid distribution centers, they all speak of the same horror. The GHF is not a humanitarian foundation. It is a machine of control, a chokehold placed upon a population already suffocating under siege. The United Nations, along with over 170 charities and NGOs, including Save the Children, Oxfam, and Amnesty International, has raised grave concerns. They accuse the GHF of weaponizing aid, forcing Palestinians into overcrowded militarized death zones, violating humanitarian principles, and participating in what can only be called state-sanctioned slaughter. Even Jake Wood, the former director of GHF, stepped down on 25 May 2025, saying, "I will not abandon the principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence." He resigned, knowing this was no longer aid. This was blood-soaked control. He understood that he may have joined thinking that he would be a part of a humanitarian mission, but that mission was far from anything humanitarian. It was a mass assault franchise under the disguise of humanitarian aid. Just days later, the US appointed Johnny Moore Jr., a pro-Israel evangelical and Trump supporter, as executive chairman. He once said, "The USA will take full responsibility for Gaza, giving everyone hope and a future." But the reality on the ground tells a different story. Hope has been crushed under boots, and futures are buried beneath rubble. The IOF personnel have now admitted that they target civilians and open fire on them for fun, as well as because they receive orders from higher authorities to do so. From May 27th to today, more than 800 Palestinian civilians have been killed at newly established GHF distribution zones. Among the most chilling reports, 17 aid seekers were targeted in an airstrike while they were waiting at a water station to fill water in containers for their families. 10 of them were children. The children merely arrived in search of something as basic as water. They paid the cost of water with their blood, but their families received dead children back instead of water. These children were punished for being thirsty, their sin being born in Gaza. Swiss authorities ordered the closure of the GHF office in Geneva in early July due to legal violations. The world gradually understands that this isn't a humanitarian endeavor. It is a war tactic. A tactic meant to control life and death through food, manipulate movements, and ultimately empty Gaza of its people. Now, whispers are growing louder as people are now able to sense that GHF's real aim was not to ease the hunger of the starving population of Gaza. Rather, its aim was to intensify their pain. Their focus was to see Gaza turned into a concentration camp. The aim was never to feed. The goal was to starve, dehumanize,